He punched me in the face. He punched me twice. And I was the most calmest I've ever been in my life. Because me and Raul had talked, and he said that those are cries for help. He actually even threatened suicide once. And all I could say is, I love you. The more he hit me, the more I told him I loved him. I told him, you can never hate me as much as I will always love you.
Welcome to the King's Code Podcast. Welcome to the King's Code Podcast. My name is Raul Velasquez, and today we have Bobby Manley in the house. Bobby, welcome to the podcast, brother. Appreciate you. This is the first podcast you've done?
Yeah, my first one. Thanks for
I know. I feel like you're a little nervous, man. So
shit.
put this a little closer to your...
I'm nervous, so bear with me.
I love it, man. I love it. You know why? Because it's going to be authentic. You know, people sometimes when we are in podcasts all the time, we just have to play a role. And I feel like this is going to be a real and raw conversation that we're going to have because you're going through a lot of shit in your life.
Yeah.
You are a successful entrepreneur. You have a beautiful wife. You have a beautiful family. You have a great business, but it came a point in your life when you hit a wall, when you start realizing that, man, there's a next level. You saw a video, a crazy man on YouTube at one point. You decided to click on that video and say, I need to get my edge back. So talk to us about that man that was in that tunnel, that was going through that, and what was he looking for?
It was funny. I was a TikTok guy. That's
you came from TikTok, not YouTube.
Yeah. And when I saw you, and then I started reading the testimonials, and I told them one of the brothers, I told them at the last leadership summit, I was reading the testimonials, and it was one of those things where when you're a blue-collar guy, you don't consider yourself an entrepreneur. You're just kind of a grinder. And I was reading some of them, and then I saw Jose Moreno's testimony, and I was like, this is the place for me. Because I had bonded, and I told him that was one of the reasons why I really felt like I had somebody in the program that was something that I had something in common with. So, but when I joined, Ron says it all the time, and even right now, to this day, today, the business boot camp, this program doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. And that's the thing that is every single time when I come to an event, it does a 180 degrees of what I thought I was going for to what I get out of it.
Because most men think that what we need is more money. As long as I have more money, then my wife is gonna want to sleep with me, then my kids are gonna love me, then everything's gonna be good. But then you realize that the more money, it's just gonna expand who you are. And if you're half-assed in life, more money is just gonna expose your weaknesses. So I'm catching the Boston. Are you from England? I mean, the accent. Are you from England? Where you
Boston.
from? Boston accent, man.
So that'll get that's a brutal accent because everyone talks. My kids used to say he talks like he has marbles in his mouth.
I love it. I feel like I'm talking to a made guy here, man. And
it's funny because when people hear me talk, they're like, "You fucking guys really talk like that?" And it's like, and then they say, "Keep talking," and it's like, what do you mean? Because I don't know.
When I was growing up, man, I hated my accent. And I wanted to fit in so much until I got high school, and then girls started digging the Raul accent, and that's I'm pretty sure that happens to you. Then after a while, people like your accent, like, man, you're memorable. You put an impression on people's lives.
Oh, good, bad, or indifferent. That's
So now talk to us about, like, man, when you came to the program, you went all in. You went to the boot camp, then you joined the inner circle. Then you made a huge investment just in time, commitment, and money. Like what has something like this, or being part of a brotherhood, being part of a community of businessmen that want to expand, that want to support each other, want to hold each other accountable, what has this done for you personally in your life?
Saved my life, saved my marriage, saved my kids. Really opened my eyes to being vulnerable. Letting my guard down, being emotional. Nobody makes fucking anyone cry like Raul. And it's the embracement of the brothers. I don't want to be around anybody but these guys. And they allow me to be me without judging me, to be vulnerable, to help me, And we talk about it in the Balls to the Wall group. I feel like I've known these guys my whole life. And you can't get that nowadays. One of the things that this program offered was proximity is power. And I just always felt like there was more for me, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know how to get there. And this was one of the reasons why I wanted to be around great leaders and entrepreneurs, was because I know that proximity is power. But this fucking program has been more than that. It's actually, like I said, it's given me so much more than I thought on a personal level than on a financial level, which is bananas to me, because I'm starting to see the reason why, but this isn't the reason why I came intentionally. That wasn't my complete intention, was finances, not personal.
You wanted more business, you wanted more insights, you want to be around business people that expanding, but what you needed was the realization that you actually bring value to others more than you think. We discount ourselves so much because we think, who are we? I'm just a blue collar guy. I'm just own a construction company. I'm just a real estate guy. Or I'm just this. Just that word, I am just this. Instead of realizing, man, like I'm bringing value because I own who I am. And that's what I see with you. Because you own who you are and you're realizing that, man, you don't have to be anything but yourself. That's what brings value to the world. And when you are surround yourself with authentic men that don't want nothing from you except to see you at the highest potential, changes the fucking game. It changes the fucking game. And not just for you, it changes the fucking game around your family. So talk to us a little bit about how has this changed your family, to the point that you're closer with your kids, you're closer with your wife than ever before.
So my story is, I'm from Boston. I'm a huge sports guy. Come from an athletic family. My wife's a college athlete. I have a daughter that's 23, a son that's 22, and a son that's 20. So, of course, having my first boy, which was my middle one, great athlete. I'm a hockey guy. He was a hockey guy. We were the closest thing. I mean, this kid was talented. He is talented to this day, but our bond was inseparable. All he wanted to do was what I wanted to do. And unfair to my other two, he was so gifted naturally that we had such a bond, and I used to take him out, and I built a skating rink, and we did everything together. He was kind of like the mini version of me. So with that being said, we were doing sports and stuff, and he got into some high-level sporting teams, and as he got more, as he got older, the competition got real intense. And as a father, I kind of was, not looking now, I was hard on him. But what happened was, I was so focused on coaching my kids in sports and everything that knowing what I know now, is I was more concerned about providing for them financially and from the sports than emotionally. Mm-hmm. So lo and behold, he had gotten to a point where we wanted to get him to a private school in the East Coast, and he didn't get in. Well, while all this was happening, my youngest one didn't like sports. So we had to get him into something. So I said to my wife, put him in an acting class. Just got to keep him busy. Lo and behold, he gets the lead role in the movie Ted, plays Mark Wahlberg at the very beginning of the movie, which changed the whole dynamic of the household from sports to acting. So my daughter says, now that Luke didn't get into school, can we move to California? Because we used to go out there in the summertime, spend some time with my cousin in San Diego, but Brett would always read for a part, and he was batting like 700 out of the gates. Every time he'd go out to California, he'd get a role. So my daughter's like, let's move there. So this is back in 2014, 15. Now my business is in Boston. I'm an electrical contractor, and I do all the universities. And I'm saying, how am I gonna make this work? So I started to research technology and, Google Chat and all this stuff, and I said, we can make this work. Let's give it a shot. I remember having this conversation with my father, and he says, their kids were in middle school and one was going to high school, and he says, your son, these are the most important years of your life. Wish I listened to him. So we move out there, and on the surface, everything looks great. Fucking living on the West Coast, living on the East Coast, flying back and forth. Son's an actor. I'm immersed in my business back here because they're out there. I'm doing 17, 18 hours a day. Well, what was happening was the bond between my middle son was deteriorating. And I would go out there, and it was to the point where the only people that were happy to see me were the dogs. And I felt such a disconnect because I was playing the victim, that I was working so that these people can be out here and they don't give a shit when the father comes up through the door. I started to get this victim mentality, and I remember being at home back in Boston saying, what am I doing this for? Like, I felt so numb inside. So we have a talk, and I told my wife what I was feeling. I actually went and started hiring a coach, and I went to Tony Robbins, and that was the beginning of my self-improvement. So we moved back to Boston because pre-COVID, and my son, 17, doesn't have no respect. It's like he's got no authority figure. It's like, what happened? Like, what happened in 3 years? So I was like, you got to go to school. He was like mouthing off. He was very disrespectful, and he's 17 years old, and I said, what are our options? And my wife looked into some schools to be sent to some therapeutic schools out in Maine. So the only way that we could get him to go is they have to come in the middle of the night and take him. The worst night of our lives, they came, took him out of his bed, and I still remember the screams to this day. We can't do this, Mom and Dad. What the fuck are you doing? You know, they say you know what you know and you know what you don't. I thought that this was the best thing for him, both of us did, because we didn't want to see him self-destruct. It was a very toxic environment. He went there, he graduated in a couple years, came back, but the resentment and the pain actually grew worse. So now he comes back, he lives with us. He was gone for a full year. And we had visitation rights and stuff. And, you know, it was the darkest year of our life. My daughter and son felt that emotional disconnect, and, you know, we started seeing therapy. One of the things during this process was when I was going with the other parents and we'd go and listen to these kids talk, this was back in, it was 2020, 2019. I said to myself, these fucking kids need help, mental health care. There's not enough, I'm uneducated, there's not enough resources out there. And I said to myself that day, I'm gonna give back to the world. I am gonna start a foundation for teens with mental health. So, you know, when you're in that moment and you're listening to these kids' stories, it's like, yeah, let's fucking go, let's do it, right? But then when he gets out and the turmoil and stuff exists and life gets in the way, you're trying to deal with all this stuff. So I'm focusing on my business, he gets arrested twice since he was out. The second time was just recently. In the meantime, as I'm doing the program, Raul told me to listen to Conversation with God. This is like 3 months ago, I started listening to the book, and then I started praying in the morning, and I was asking God to guide me. God, please guide me to help me deal with this situation. And 2 weeks ago, something happened in the house, and my son, he came at me. And my wife, we were arguing, and my wife was like, calm down, not to me, to him. I was very calm. Prior to this, I had a very violent streak, which I learned about during the boot camp. And I really connected with myself on an emotional level. So fast forward to just recently, He punched me in the face. He punched me twice. And I was the most calmest I've ever been in my life. Because me and Raul had talked, and he said that those are cries for help. He actually even threatened suicide once. And all I could say is, I love you. The more he hit me, the more I told him I loved him. I told him, you can never hate me as much as I will always love you. I would never have been able to do that had it not been for this program. Had it not been for this program, I probably would have beat the fuck out of him, ended up in jail, him in the hospital, and my wife divorced today because she would never look at me the way I am. Oh, it gets better. They say God gives you only what you can handle. Sometimes you ask for, be careful what you ask for. So, my wife says to me, he would never have done that to you if you hadn't been doing the work. Because he knows what would have happened. And I learned in the program, his pain is not my pain. And I continue to support him and tell him, he's got to live with that now. That's his pain.
Yeah. You know, and it takes courage, Bobby, for you to know that he is going after you because he's in pain. Because the normal reaction, or I wouldn't say normal, the average reaction of the average man would have been, oh, you can't disrespect me, you disrespect your father, and then you match violence with violence, right? And if you talk to an average person, hey, you know, my son would never do that. He knows what's coming to him, right? That because they don't understand that you cannot continue to you can't break the cycle doing the same shit over and over again. Like, you've been called to break the cycle, right? So now you have an opportunity. Do you break the cycle, or you continue in this path of unconsciousness? He's crying for help. So now either you create the stance of like, listen, you can never hate me as much as I love you, knowing that you have the power to hit him back. But that is strength when you constrain your power because you know that he's in pain. And that's how he's gonna realize, like, shit, is on me. Because he's gonna have to deal with his own pain.
So we talk about God sending us signs. And I used to say to God, send me a sign, send me a sign. And I'm like, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what it is that people need. They need to be educated, they need to be aware, and they need resources to go to so that we can prevent things like, I wish that someone had kind of, you don't see these buses coming. You just don't. And, I want to make a difference. And the reason why I came to this program today is because I want to, and Yannick validated today to me. This is a guy that has worth more than I could count, right? And without fulfillment, he validates it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It does not matter.
Success without fulfillment is ultimate failure.
And so I'm coming to this financial boot camp, and I'm getting a message completely fucking opposite of here we go again.
It's what you need. It's what you need.
It's what I need. So fast forward, God gives me these signs. My other son, the actor, calls me and he says, I'm coming home, dropping out of school. I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, this just happened yesterday with the other son. So I says to my queen, she goes, yeah, something's not right. So he comes home, he sits us down, and he says, I'm uncomfortable in my own skin. He starts going through all the emotions and the stress and the mental health issues. And he says, proceeds to say is, that's why so many kids today are smoking marijuana. These kids today are sedating themselves at the highest levels, and with the cannabis being so legal, they're just preying on these kids, and they have no coping mechanisms. Their bandwidth is zero. I always told him, I'm gonna love you no matter what. He says to me, Dad, I felt so comfortable because I see you doing the work. You're inspiring me. And if that ain't a sign from God that fucking this program and I am right where I need to be, then I don't know what is. So as I'm talking to the guys and I'm talking to Yannick and I'm telling him what I really want to do, and he looks at me like, what the fuck are you waiting for? I could see it in his eyes because he's been there. He's done that. And I know that I still have to financially support my family and everything, but my purpose in life to give back is to start this foundation for mental health awareness. And we talk about obsession. Over the last 24 hours, I've been fighting myself for what my obsession is. Today, I've got complete clarity and certainty of what my perspective and my fucking purpose is. And without you guys, I would never have been able to come to that conclusion. And I'm just blessed and so honored that I've been able to have this breakthrough with all of you.
Yeah, and I'm honored that you, like I said, it's gonna be a real raw conversation. Because a lot of men don't know how to handle shit like this. Like I could just imagine if my son says that to me, I would have the same reaction. I love you, no matter what. Knowing that, you know, this culture right now is most likely preying also on young men to be confused. So because he sees you doing the work, being a man, he's gonna figure his shit out whether he wants to go one way or the other. It's gonna be his choice. But he's not gonna do it because he's not loved. Not because he's looking for love in the wrong places. He's gonna do it because that's who he is. But the lack of love is what's creating this confusion in men, and young men, to say, hey, I don't get love over here, I'm gonna get love over here. I'm gonna get significance from doing something and being something that I think they want me to be. So.
Not only that, but I think seeing your platform, and it gives me ideas of how, I said to Raul, your son would be perfect for that next generation to send that message, because I saw him speak at the Leadership Summit. And I was like, what better way to make an impact as father and son to really generations? Yeah. And to me, it's just, that's how God is working in the universe. And now this is another resource I'm able to tap into to achieve my goal. And one of the things that me and my queen want to do is we want to travel. We want to travel the country or the world to just tell our story. And today was the day that was my breakthrough moment, because I feel as though I don't speak well in front of people. And I was like, today was a must. If I'm going to continue to preach and tell my story, I have to be comfortable, and I have to be comfortable in my skin, but also conviction of letting people know that there's a real problem out there and we need to address it. And I'm living proof. I'm living proof.
Outstanding, bro. Listen, it's an honor to be here for you in these times and support you in this growth that you're having. I can't wait to see what God has in store for you, brother, because it's a true honor to see a man like you doing the work, showing up, and changing the lineage of unconscious behavior in your family. Thank you, brother. Appreciate
I'm blessed to have you. Give me a hug.
If you're ready to find the edge, go to kingscodebook.com to get the latest copy of my book, The King's Code. This book will help you find the clarity, the certainty, and the purpose that you need in order for you to lead with power. Go to kingscodebook.com and find your code to the edge now.